Good afternoon, everyone, and good afternoon, chaps. On to the Green Arrow podcast from Fantasy Football Hub as we look ahead to double game week 7. My name is Fergie. Welcome back, Adam. And what colour was your arrow in game week 6?
Yeah, sadly, it was another red arrow. Although I had plenty of players return, I didn't have as many as a lot of people. So, relatively not great. So, I got 70 points. The players I had return. Botman, my transfer in. That was good to see. Estupinan with an assist. And then in my midfield, I had Saka, Maddison, and Bruno, and then Captain Haaland with a goal. So my transfers in were Alvarez and Botman. So yeah, relatively happy with that. I think the red card sort of ruined things for City because I think Alvarez was looking okay up until that point. But you know, these things happen. It wasn't a 1 week transfer. It's nice having double City attack, I think, going forwards. Yeah, so yeah, I've got a few flags and a few issues after what Rich said last week. Oh, your team's looking great. You got no flags, you got no issues. Cheers, Rich. You've cursed me. Got a lot of flags now. So yeah, thanks for that.
So we discussed last week the kind of pros and cons of Trippier and Botman and the cost saving and Salah and stuff. With like a week on, are you still kind of happy to go as you've gone, I suppose?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it was a bit of a freak result, let's face it. And whilst I like Trippier, I've planned my moves up to about game week 9, and I think if I had Trippier, it would impact the midfield and strike force that I can potentially have. So I think well done to people that went Trippier. And particularly the fact, well done to those that doubled up on Newcastle defence. Wow. I think Newcastle defence is incredible. It's just I'm not sure he's not going to get 3 assists every week, is he? That's the reality. I mean, Sheffield United are terrible, absolutely terrible. And if you look at when you're looking at the stats, I think I'm correct in this, is that when I'm looking at just defenders and sort of big chances created, like Estupinan is the one that's really standing out. I think he's created 5 big chances or 4 big chances with 1 big chance. So he's had the most big chance involvements. So I'm not too worried not having Trippier. I nearly knee-jerked and brought him in, but I think there's another couple of players that could be quite fun to own. So I'll save that for a bit later on.
Awesome. Rich, welcome back. How are you? And what colour was your arrow in game week 6?
Hi, Fergie. Hi, everyone. Yeah, good. I've had a good week for the first time in about 5 weeks. So yeah, I think Adam and our rank is exactly the same. I've just noticed on the screen 1 5 7 2 7 9 0. Whoop de doo. Yeah. 81. I think not spectacular because there were some really high scores, but because I already had a Newcastle defender, the late decision I made to sell Chilwell and bring in Fabian Schär was a good one. I mean, actually, you probably think he was the only outfield player not to get any returns from the game. I mean, he got a clean sheet, but he didn't get any attacking returns. And statistically, he's always been one of the most likely to do so. So I'm pleased I've got him. I'm pleased I've got the double up. I like I said to you on the show, I was 0.1 short on Trippier, and I said on the show last week I'd have done it if I'd had that extra 0.1, and you've obviously prospered Fergie by doing that very move. So yeah, I think I do agree with Adam. No, if you get Trippier, it does block other moves, and particularly if you're not completely dead set on wildcarding soon. You can play more freely if you have the lower value Newcastle defender. So I'm quite happy to stick with the 2 I've got, assuming that Botman gets over his knee problem, as quoted last night.
Knee is the one. It's the one part of the body you don't. Well, not the one part. There are other parts, but part of the limb you don't like to hear, do you? Knee problem usually is quite nasty.
Absolutely. And it was also a week last week, obviously, when quite a few people wildcarded,
Yeah.
and the midfield players that I had, like Maddison, Saka, Bruno Fernandes, etc., all came in with returns. So despite the Alvarez transfer, which I did for Nicholas Jackson, that didn't yield anything straight away. But I think I've heard the term, Alvarez was Rodrid basically.
Was.
Last week.
Doku even more so for those who went with Doku on wildcard. It's really unlucky.
Yeah. He was playing well, so I wouldn't read too much into the 1 pointer. I think he'll be back and he's still a good pick. So relatively happy with the team. Apart from I've got more flags than the Ryder Cup, Fergie. So we've got
a whole section dedicated to flags, which, as you know, so we'll touch on that in a bit. I scored 82. Really, really good week. Trippier brought him in. Gvardiol came in and got a bonus point. I was quite pleased with that because I've held him through all his poor returns the last few weeks, and then the usual. Brought in Alvarez. He was a bit unfortunate, but quite happy. Nice to have a nice week. Went up from 3.2 million to 2.1, and shout out to Gianni Boutis. I don't know if you guys saw his score. He scored 112 points. And went from something like 2.1 million to 180k in one game week. So well played, Gianni. And there was a few others who had some awesome weeks as well. So very, very well played there. In our Hub mini league, so if you go to Fantasy Football Hub and go to mini leagues on my team, you can get everything up to date, real time mini leagues. You can see everyone's captains, vices, transfers. You can see on screen now. Adam and Rich, you're both exactly on 366 points. But I've closed that gap. I'm just 7 points behind you now. So we're with 7 points between all three of us, which is absolutely nothing. In terms of awards this week, just to shout out a few. Adam had the casual. Adam also had the donkey as well this week, obviously with your lowest score of 70. I'm trying to see, Rich, what you won. You won the Maverick this week. And I won the Redknapp. So big shout out there for Adam winning Donkey of the Week this week. Again, you can get your own awards on your own mini leagues. Go to Fantasy Football Hub and you can send them to all your friends. Violin moments from game week 6, of which we have a few. We've had a fair few, but what I'm liking this week is people have really they've taken the time to go into the detail for some of these, rather than just like say, I took Saka out. We've got a couple of stories and some absolute howlers. So just gonna run through a few of these. Our first one is from Gary, who works the support channel at Fantasy Football Hub. After scoring 23 points in game week 5 and had a game week rank of nearly 9.8 million, which I think is more than the amount of players there was. Unbelievable. He wildcarded and he took out Gvardiol, Foden, Son, and all 3 Chelsea assets, with only 3 of my original squad surviving. And 2 of them were Estupinan and Maddison. But no, 3 minutes before the deadline, decided to be clever. He moved out Estupinan and Archer for Gusto, who's now got sent off, and Edouard, who was really lucky not to score, but got injured as well, meaning he benched Maddison, who I concluded would do nothing against Arsenal.
Gary.
Lovely stuff. And he's a Chelsea fan, so Chelsea lost again, so that was a good one. Andrew Lindstrom Savage, who I'm friends with on LinkedIn, we sometimes exchange stories. He had a violent moment this week. He couldn't get Trippier in, priced out by 0.1 due to price changes, brought in Botman instead. I saved my team content on Friday evening after watching the Green Arrow. I then checked how I was getting on Saturday and was horrified to see he'd accidentally somehow played his bench boost. And his bench boost consisted of, he had Gusto, and his bench boost was Turner 1, Gabriel 1, João Pedro 1, and Kabore 8. So massive 8 points. So we're very, very unlucky there, Andrew. I have no idea how you accidentally play your bench boost, but that is an absolute stinker. We had a couple more. Everything, it's really long ones this week. Everything was going all right. 4 players heading towards 10 plus points, including Haaland captaincy, a decent Green Arrow, and the sun was shining at 3 o'clock. At 10 past 3, decided to check the scores, and bang, Jackson booked, won't be eligible next week. What else do you do? Completely out with the blue. Gusto sent off, -3. He said he was stunned, legs completely numb, unable to swallow food. Realization hits. Chilwell will come on for another 1-pointer. Head in my hands. He was planning to do Jackson to Watkins and Chilwell to Botman. He didn't end up doing him. Chilwell gets booked, scores Score 0. Didn't have any Newcastle players. He said every notification on Sunday was like a dagger to the heart. He said, here for the highs, here for the lows. We keep going. And the final two, Andrew Stewart was all set to do Jota to Mitoma until Rich Clarke suggested Trossard. Bruno was my second choice after Mitoma, but I fancied him at home to Bournemouth. Got Saliba's 1-pointer off the bench for Trossard no-show. Defender to Trips up bottom was my other alternative, Disaster. And FPL Hawtrey, Violin, Rage Wildcard, just simply put, sold Gvardiol, Onana, Foden, Bruno, Saka and Son. So you are all honorary members of the Violin Club for this week. Welcome. And don't forget to send in your submissions every week for a chance to be a member of this very exclusive club. Some absolute stinkers this week. Before we move on, let's just say hello in the chat. FPL Tiger, Sean Williams, Todd Kirschka, FPL Jelly, Johnny A, talking about Luton double game week. We're going to touch on those now. I'm 1974 says, anyone being forced into wildcard due to injuries? We're also going to touch on all the flags. It's going to be a really, really tough week for lots of teams. Jani Kalioski is in. Ron Espeseth is in. FPL Scoped. So can Music Pogo. Christian Lundstrom says Green Arrow after a few reds, so finally on the right track. Well done. Dan Megan said, hope we enjoyed the rugby. Absolutely. Wales absolutely destroyed Australia. It's going to be a good few weeks. And everyone else, welcome to you all. Double game week 7, chaps. Double game week fever. You love it, Rich. Double game week fever for Luton and Burnley. Rich, can I come to you first? Just on your thoughts on this game week in terms of players to potentially target this week, and then also, looking ahead to what this means for our teams in the coming weeks.
Okay, well, it's probably, I think I've written in my team reveal, it's probably the most underwhelming double game week I think we've ever had. I mean, there's been a few, haven't there, in the past with Watford and Burnley, but they've tended to have opposition that you might own a player for. I mean, I think if you really looked at this objectively, you probably wouldn't choose to own players from either Burnley or Luton, for longer than one game week. So the one positive thing I think there is in this is that if you do have a team that has lots of flagged players and we go into the weekend and you maybe were thinking of rolling a transfer but can't because you can't get an 11 out, it does give you a cheap opportunity to get a side out and get in some cheap double game weekers that will at least have some upside because they have 2 games, and that you can perhaps use a free transfer or maybe even take a -4 and get 4 games out of those guys to cover your side if you are particularly someone who has, I don't know, Chilwell, Saka, Maddison, Botman, any number of these flag players who may not make it. I'm a case in point. I've got 5 outfield players who currently got a flag or are not being picked. So there's I'm in that predicament. So I am considering a couple of Luton players as candidates, and they are the obvious ones. So Morris for Mubama, just to give me that extra player. I've got the money for that move. And also I've got Baldock, who's now injured and red flagged, so he's very unlikely to play. And so, as my existing poor choice 4 million defender, just replace him with Kabore, not spend too much of the budget. Because what I don't like about the Morris move is it just eats up all my funds and doesn't give me any money for Son moves or Salah moves that I might be saving up for, that kind of thing. And I'm sure that's on other people's minds as well. So I'm a bit more keen on making the defensive transfer if I have to, but I don't want any of them, if I'm being really honest with you. I certainly am. I have very little FOMO about other people owning them. So it's more just I'll get one if I have to get a side out, if that makes sense.
It does. Adam, what's your thinking? Are you going all in? Are you going 3 Luton, 3 Burnley for a -12 or anything like that? Or
no, not at all. I've got no interest at all. Well, I've got Kabore, but I think if I would, because I've got defensive issues. I suppose it depends really what the situation with Saka, Maddison is, and if I need to address it, because I could do the Archer to Morris move and 2 games. Having looked at Archer, and sorry, Archer Morris and his stats. He's averaging something like 0.2 non-pen XG per match, so he's very reliant on penalties. I think Everton have improved
massively.
So they've improved. I don't think even at home they were creating chances, and So I expect Everton to win comfortably the weekend, and I think so. You're putting a lot in that Burnley game. The caveat to that is, I think Burnley are a better team than Luton as well. And I think Burnley, I could realistically see Burnley keeping a clean sheet in that game or not giving those. They didn't give United many chances. And it took a worldie from Bruno to win the game. And I think even in the Championship, they had one of the best defences. So I've got a Luton defender, not feeling brilliant about that. Obviously, I'll play him because you never know. But
who will you bench? Who will you bench from your defence if you do play him?
At the moment, Udogie against Liverpool. I mean, okay. I've got Estupinan, Chilwell, Botman, Kabore, and Udogie, so I haven't got loads of choice. And I'm actually thinking of making a defensive transfer this week and potentially benching Estupinan. But after last night, I'm not sure I feel great about that either. So I'm really team needs dependent at the moment. My transfers range from, I'm not wildcarding, I don't think, but they range from doing nothing to a 4-point hit. So it's all team needs dependent.
The Hub AI wildcard team for Gameweek 7, we'll take a look a bit later when we talk wildcard, but that looks really interesting. It looks madness on paper. When you first look at it, you think, what a load of rubbish. But actually, when you look at it, looks all right. I'm semi-tempted to hit the button. I don't know. It all depends on the flags and team. Well, if I've got four players injured and I've got 9 players playing or whatever it is, then I don't know. We'll see. Yeah. We'll see. Just looking at predicted points just for this particular game week, Haaland is top as you would expect, 8.7. But Morris comes in second, 8.1. Kaminski, keeper, for Luton, 7.3. Trafford, keeper, for Burnley, 6.8. Burke, defender for Luton, 4 million. Salah then 6.4. Son 6.3. Ramsey, Burnley mid. Then Bruno. Then Bell, Brownhill, and Tressor, and Lockyer and Kabore. So just just to
dominating the table, isn't it?
Well, it's just the 2 games, isn't it? You know they as we say kind of tongue in cheek every year, you would guess if you've got a starting player for one of these teams, they should start on 4 points, shouldn't they? Maybe not defenders, but the mids and things. So it only takes something. I watched Amdouni against United, the midfielder, on the weekend against you, and I thought he was unlucky. He looks good. It's just a shame he's 5.4 million. If he was 4.5 or something, you could maybe have messed around. But
if he's 4.5, you still wouldn't get him.
Still wouldn't get him. But he'd maybe be someone, if you were wild card, you could have the 5th mid if you wanted to go.
Yeah, get that.
But it's just interesting that this week with the points, Luton and Burnley, aside from Haaland, Salah, Son, Bruno, Rashford, and Trippier, they make up the other 20. So we could be being a bit short. So it only takes 1 clean sheet or 1 goal from one of these players, and all of a sudden they have a very good week. So
it still feels though like, okay, let's just say Saka's ruled out, right, for 2 weeks. Okay, I got this question asked in the Ultra group earlier. Would you sell him? What would you do with Saka if he's out of the City game and he's out of the game this weekend? It's a really good question, because actually, if you move him to Son this week, it's a transfer that I might have done next week anyway. So it kind of makes good use of the transfer, brings in Son instead, but he's got to play Liverpool and then Luton.
I'm not scared of him playing.
I personally think that's better use of the transfer than getting a Luton player. That's just in terms of the use of the transfer. Do you see what? Just to get a side out.
I think if you've got a planned wild card, and I've just messed around with it quickly, I think if you've got a planned wild card, let's say game week 9, game week 10, the move makes more sense. It could solve a problem this week. There's an upside possibility. It could be a good option in the bench off in future weeks. But I think if you're not planning your wildcard and you want to go through, and obviously we've had some news on City and Brentford, then I can't see, other than maybe the 4.0 defenders, where I can possibly see some argument because they can be last on your bench, it can free up budget. But even with the 4.0 defenders, I think I prefer Burnley to Luton, because I think Burnley are better longer term. I think they rotate well, potentially with. I saw really maybe Man United. If I might be wrong on that, but it could be a useful fixture. So yeah, I think I agree with you, Rich. I think I don't know if we want to talk about the Saka being ruled out now and options, because
I've just moved on actually to Fun with Flags. So thank you, Rich, for the image. We need to credit, if we can, credit where you got this from. It was sent to you, wasn't it? But it's a really nice image for those listening on the podcast of Sheldon Cooper presents Fun with Flags from, I can't remember the name of the program. What's the name of the program, Rich? I can't think. But it's all the flag players. Just to run through the players who are flagged this week so far: Chilwell, Gusto, Botman, Byrne, Henry, Martinelli, Baldock, Saka, Maddison, Edward, Isaac, Wilson, and Jackson. That is absolutely insane. There will be people who've got 5 or 6 of them as well.
I've got 4. Can you guys beat that?
I've got 4. I've got 4 and a non-playing third bencher as well.
Have you got Baldock or somebody?
Yeah, Baldock, Botman, Saka and Maddison, and Mubama. So 5 non-playing outfielders.
Okay, so you're probably worse than me. What about you, Fergie? How many?
I think I've got 4. I haven't actually got my team in front of me. I've got Maddison, Saka. I'm not sure. And I've got Mubama, who obviously can't play. So I think I've only got the 3. But yes, sorry. Those I'm just being corrected in the chat. Big Bang Theory is the program is off. Sheldon, and just for completeness, on the Luton, the only other thing I would say, the only other scenario I would say where I think it may be a good idea to get them in, is if you're wildcarding, and I'll touch on a bit later when we talk a bit more wildcard. But you get the double this week. Like, we never know what can happen, right? And with all the flags and stuff, if you do get in some of the 4 million Luton and Bury defenders, and they do manage to get a clean sheet or a header off a corner, you're also set then with your 4 million defenders to go with your wild card, because assuming people are going to want Trippier, Estepine, and maybe and whoever else, you're already set then going forward. So I do think if you're wild carding, going in I don't want to say reasonably heavy on them, could be a good start on wild cards, because you can also afford players like Salah and Son as well. That'd be the only other thing.
The only problem with Luton defenders is even Nicholas Jackson scored against them. His only Premier League goal has come against them.
Do you know what? And
got to balance it up a little bit.
And Johnny A, he summed it up really nicely in the chat. In 5 words? No, in 6 words. He said Luton just lost to Exeter City, which they did last night in the cup.
Did they lose?
Oh my
God, I didn't even notice.
They are, yeah. I think on this. This is where the double game week can give you blind spots massively, because as an example, let's say people are looking at Saka, taking him out, and I might think, well, do you know what? I'll keep Saka, but I'll do the Archer or Mbama to Morris move. Yeah. The opportunity cost of that. Now, that could work out. Yes, there is a gamble, but it's very, very one game week. You've got someone like Bowen or Ward-Prowse, whichever one you fancy, who've got Sheffield United, who've just conceded 8. I think if you look at maybe from Ward-Prowse, you've got the set pieces, and given how many goals Newcastle got from set pieces and crosses, and then Bowen is on fire at the moment. Could be. Really, I think I prefer that route. I prefer that route than Morris, because unless you're completely tied into a wild card, but even so, I would. I'd be more surprised if Morris got 14 points than Bowen, personally.
Yeah. No, I think that's really fair. And we've learned in the past, haven't we? We often joke around Dennis and Veghorst and all these people who we work so hard and manipulate transfers for weeks and weeks to get these mugs in our team, just for them to do what they do every week, absolutely nothing. So it is a really good point.
And then you can't get rid of them, and you've got that extra million tied up in in a Morris over a fodder, and that looks great. But then how do you get to Salah if you don't wildcard? How do you get to Trippier if you don't wildcard? You will wildcard if you get these players.
It's a really good point, and a final point just on that before we move on to flags is that team form changes, and we were looking at potentially the Everton game even 2 weeks ago. We're thinking do you know what? Luton can actually get a goal or two there because Everton is so dreadful. And all of a sudden, Everton have really turned the corner. And all of a sudden, you fancy Everton to turn Luton right over, don't you? So it's just a thing as well on playing a bit too far in advance at times can bite you in the backside, can't it? But you mentioned
absolutely.
You mentioned about Saka, Adam. We'll talk about him specifically because he's incredibly highly owned. First, what are your thoughts on Saka and and how to manage the very vague news we're likely going to get?
Yeah, absolutely. I absolutely love Saka as a player at the moment. I just think for me, I want to have him for the majority of the season. However, one thing that is very, very notable is his home form and Arsenal's to an extent in terms of attacking how they attack is much better than his away form. So he's been very, very consistent this season. But if you look at it at home, he's got 10, 8, 4, 13. I think he can return against anyone, including Manchester City. But given that he's got Bournemouth away, which we think he could miss, then Man City away, Man City at home, then Chelsea away, I have no issue. If Saka is out this week, I would have no hesitation to sell him. Now, who I sell him for is tough, actually, because I think there are a few options here as to what I do. I could sell him for Son. I could sell him for Bowen. I could sell him for Diaby. I think there's loads and loads of great options to sell him. But I think the alternative is you keep him and then maybe upgrade either your defence or make a transfer to a playing forward like Morris, which could pay off this week, but I just don't like it longer term. And therefore, you've put more money in a really what was a non-playing spot, and you've taken it out of those great, the funds out of midfielders where the likes of Salah, Son, Diaby, Matoma, if you haven't got Man United, they could come good in the next few weeks. So, yeah, I think for me, if he's out, he will probably go. I'm not sure who for though yet.
Okay, interesting. And Rich, what's your take on Saka? Yeah. Who would you get in for him?
I was actually at the game, so I went. I went to the North London derby, which was a great experience. Wow. If you've only seen the highlights, you haven't really seen the half of it because it was about 110 or 105 minute game. He played loads of time at the end, and he was unable to run from about the 75th minute onwards. Really? Wow. And all the Arsenal fans are screaming at Arteta for him to take him off because they could see that he was injured. They could see that he couldn't play. And he didn't take him off until about the 90th or 91st minute. And it was practically the end of normal time before he took him off. And I think he did have a shot at the end that he managed to get off that nearly resulted in a goal. But apart from that, he was really, really struggling. So there's some opinion out there this week that because, I think it was from Mark Southerns, that because last night Arsenal played pretty much most of the players that would replace Saka and played them for the full game, why would he do that if Saka wasn't going to make it for the weekend, right? So Mark particularly thinks he's going to be all right. Now, that's positive, but I saw the game and I saw that he was really bashed about. That was just my view, and everyone was yelling for him to cover. So I'm not so sure just on how nobbled he was at the end. So yeah, if I'm taking him out, there's a couple that I do like. It will probably act the opposite way to the Luton defenders in terms of the fact it will give me an opportunity to save my wild card for longer, and I will probably go for an enabling fifth mid. Someone like an Anthony Gordon at 5.6 million.
Like that shout, yeah.
Or Ward-Prowse at 6.3, which is going to give me a chunk of change from selling Saka towards the Salah move. And therefore that'll increase, get me most of the Salah money by just dealing with that Saka situation. And even if Saka's back for City, it's only City, right? Then you can possibly choose to wildcard him back in 9 or 10, or you can just go without Saka for a bit longer and just get Salah via normal transfers and delay that wild card. So it just gives you more flexibility going forward. Plus a cracking player in Ward-Prowse or Gordon for this weekend's fixture. So that would be probably what I'll do. But again, I want those pressers, So that's my thought.
I think that was exactly my thinking, Rich. I'm gonna go if he is out, I'm gonna go one way or the other. My initial thoughts straight away was Saka to Son, because I can't see him not playing up front again. I think they've just been playing really well within there. Not scared of a Liverpool fixture in the slightest from a an offensive view for Spurs. I think it'll be a high scoring game. I think it'll be like a 2-2 or a 3-2 either way or something. Same as the Arsenal game. But I completely agree with you. I've got my eye on Ward-Prowse. He's been looking really good. He's got 2 goals, 3 assists so far this season. Good XG, good XA, really good stats. And I think, as you say, if you went Saka to him, or Rashford's another one, you're saving the 2.5 or 3 million. You're a third of your way to get Salah. The only problem with that, I feel, is that it's this whole planning a bit too far ahead again. I understand about being flexible. I completely get that, but we could reach a point in a couple of weeks again where we just don't need Salah, or Salah gets injured, or Liverpool are he's hugging the right hand touchline again and things. I think I said last week. I'm not sure if I prefer Núñez. I think Núñez is gonna. I think Núñez in this next 6 or 8 weeks is gonna become that permanent number 9 up front, and he's going to get a lot of points.
Cheap Salah replacement to cover Liverpool.
Yeah. He seems to like them in combinations, doesn't he? He likes Núñez with Diaz and Gakpo with Jota.
Yeah,
that's what it seems to be. Yeah. On Salah, I want to cover a couple of things actually, because I think he is a big factor on when I decide to wildcard, if I decide to wildcard, and how I play it. I posted yesterday. I don't think quite a few people didn't get it. They thought I was having a go at Salah as an option. I'm not. For balance, he is incredible. I actually would argue it's as good for me as he started a season as a complete player, because his assist threat and the amount of chances he is creating for that team is incredible. And he's almost, from a fantasy football perspective, sort of emulating more of a De Bruyne, not in terms of playing style, but in terms of an FPL perspective, because it's great for his bonus points. He's really
changed, haven't he, over the years?
Yeah, he's not had. So I mean, this is just big chance involvements. I could do other metrics, but big chance involvements for the midfielders. There's a lot of players grouped around between 5 and 7 big chances. Your Mbeumo, your Sterling, Bowen, Decore, Son, Matoma, Saka, Bruno, etc. Salah's on 11, but the majority of those, I think it's 8, I could be wrong, are big chances created, which is actually good for bonus. So he's not getting many big chances, but as a consequence, he's not missing any. So it's really good for bonus points for him. So I actually do like that about Salah. The challenge for Salah is that we all have a constraint of, let's say, 83 million or a little bit more now when you factor in. So people were arguing points per million is completely irrelevant. It isn't, because we need to return, assuming we all have a shoestring bench, we need to get the biggest return for that 83, 84 million on points. So if you've got a player, you've got Haaland, and my argument on this is, if you're not going to captain Salah, that's it. If you're going to captain him, I think he's a great option, and and you can alternate with Haaland. But the problem is he takes up such a huge part of that budget. There could be other combinations which in total get you more points. That's my only point. So you're going to have to rely on cheaper players doing well. Now, there could be the likes of Matoma, Diaby, and Mbeumo. There are options out there. Anthony Gordon, as you've mentioned, the West Ham boys. But it just depends on, would you rather do that, or would you rather have Saka, who has really good fixtures, I think, after game week 10 onwards, have the likes of Saka, double Man United, Son, a bigger defence, maybe spending slightly more up front. So I think it's we could see people go in different ways, and I completely agree with Rich and yourself around in terms of wild carding. I think I was going to think, do I have a plan to get Salah? But you know what? I think my plan is if I want Salah or Wildcard, because I'm going to have to take that extra hit or something else. And do you know what? I won't just. I could go Salah and Nunes and really double up and attack Liverpool's fixtures, possibly even a defender as well, because I think they'll keep. I think actually I think they've been better defensively than people are giving them credit for as well. So yeah, I do think Salah's a good option, but I think he becomes a better option, much better option if you're willing to captain him. Now, it takes a brave person to go against Haaland because what did I say? Salah's had 11 big chance involvements. He's the second best in the game. Haaland's 16. So, and he could have had some mega hauls.
These last 2 weeks. These last 2 weeks.
4 hat-tricks so last season. Chances, one already this season. He could have, in theory, got a hat-trick in most games. So I just don't think I can go against Haaland. And there's only a couple of fixtures I don't like, but I think in that, players.
It's nice not living like a pauper, isn't it? If you haven't got Salah, if you have Salah, you've got to really eke it out and because I don't know what your team value is like, but mine's rubbish. Mine's like 100.4, so I've got nothing accrued, and that's another reason I don't really want a wild card yet because I want to get some more team value before I do.
And I think there's also the factor. It depends on Son as well, because let's say Son is less of a factor and we don't need him. We prefer Maddison, and maybe he goes and plays out wide. Again, it becomes more feasible to get Salah. So, or United and really tail off, and we don't, and it's sort of the having likes of Bruno and Rashford aren't adding value. Again, it makes it a lot easier to get Salah. So, I think we'll have an idea in 2 or 3 game weeks. But I think my plan is get to game week 9 or 10. I'll probably assess it at 9, and I think in either 9 or 10 I'll go with the wild card. I appreciate there are other options, but my team value's low. I think leaving it any later, it could get to the point where I'm like a couple of million down on versus other players, and I don't really want to do that. And I think there's other solutions around Man City, Brentford.
Okay, thank you, Adam. Just before we move on, we're going to chat a bit more around Wildcard next, because the Carabao results last night influenced a double game week potential for game week 20. So we're going to touch on that next. But just in terms of the flagged players, so we talked about Saka, Chilwell, Botman, and the Newcastle forwards are probably the 3 or 4 out of that lot, which could have significant implications for FPL. Rich, just in terms of those, so you own a couple of those, don't you? Or you did own?
Yeah, definitely.
What's your thinking on those at the moment?
I don't know a lot about the Burn one, but the Botman knee problem. I mean, 1 or 2 comments say he should be fine, and it's just one of these, how coming up with an excuse that he just was giving him a rest. But I'm not quite.
Why would he say knee problem? Why didn't you just say he's having a rest? I don't understand.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I know. It's not ideal, and I think they've got quite a big Champions League game coming up next week, haven't
PSG
they? As well?
next
so
week.
I think it's probably not going to take much chance with Sven. So yeah, I'm a bit worried. I think some of those other ones, Chilwell, obviously, it's unfortunate for people who've held on to him that they're not going to get even a chance to get a game out of him if they have held on to him, because he's now injured after he came on again. He got injured in their EFL Cup game. Obviously, Gusto's now suspended. Jackson is suspended. So, if you've been slow to get rid of your Chelsea assets, then just get it done and get rid of those guys now. It's pretty bleak out there. And you just got to try and get a side out. But Maddison, I think, is the most positive. I think he's still flagged, but I think he's likely to play, is what most reports say. So I think I'll start Maddison, and it's really the Saka news that's going to lead to, I think, the more.
It's the fixtures after, isn't it? Because Spurs have got Luton and Fulham, I think, and
you don't waste the transfer by doing Saka to Son, for instance, and you could just do Son as a temporary move on the way to getting Salah later on, so you can just cover those 2 fixtures and then upgrade him in game week 9. Or just raise. I just like the idea of raising the cash and attacking that Sheffield United fixture, I think, and then going for Salah in game week 9. So I think you're going to come on to Ben's graphic in a minute, aren't you, Fergie? But basically, like,
we are nice.
I quite like a late wild card. I quite like using my wild card when I want to use it rather than when the community tells me to. So there's a lot of content about going in game week 9, game week 10, and if you like your team by that time, and it is always team specific, but if you do like your team, then just hang on to your wild card, because things change so quickly in this game. There'll be another week in 4 or 5 weeks time when we've got twice this many flags, and all of a sudden you've got 8 or 9 of them in your team, and then you wild card. So it's just how many do you need? If there's any more tomorrow in the pressers, then I might have to do a rapid wild card, and I think you've got one of them coming up as well, haven't you? So,
we have indeed.
Yeah, get up to sort of 6 or 7, and then you have to think about wild carding, really.
FPL Scoped says my team finances are as bad as my actual finances, and and
I like that.
Chat Sports, I held Chilwell like I held on to Havertz last season. Brilliant. So yeah, some really, really good stuff in the chat. He also said Anthony and Mount are back for United. And said Anthony's back, is he? Mount was back. I'm not sure Anthony's back. He might be. I'm not sure. Just having a quick look at some of the. Nicholas says he's had Haaland, Salah, Saka, Fernandes the whole season. You don't have to sacrifice that much. Just thinking, just out loud in terms of wildcard. If you went for Gordon and Ward-Prowse, for example, you could probably get Salah,
anyone you want.
Salah, Saka, Son, or Salah, Bruno, Son, couldn't you, and stuff is like reasonably easily. This is the thing when you look at wildcard. We still got it in your pocket, it just burns a hole all the time, doesn't it? If you know, how many times as well, right? Have you got into like a blank game week with 9 players and ended up with only actually 7 playing players as well? This is the problem. Is you just think why, especially this week with the doubles as well, with the cheap doublers anyway. So, some conflicting reports. FPL Swans says Saka in training, but some others said he's not in training. Yeah, really good stuff. Let us know in the chat if you are wildcard, and if you are, let us know your wildcard team, and we'll read a couple out later. Segue in nicely then onto wildcard timing. Ben Crellin wrote a post last night. Man City versus Brentford is a blank in game week 18. This is because Man City will be playing in the World Club Cup. He says both teams are now out of the EFL Cup 2. And he says he's 99% sure that the double game week for Man City and Brentford will move to either game week 10, which he has since said will not happen or cannot happen, game week 20 or game week 21. He favours game week 20, which will give Man City a double of Sheffield United and Brentford at home. I mean, what a double that is. And Brentford a double of Palace and Man City away. Not as exciting at all. But my first immediate thought with this, where you have these instant thoughts of this is what I'm doing now. My instant thought was I'm saving my wild cards. I'm gonna a wild card in game week, wherever it is. I know 18 or 19, and then and whatever else. But with all these flags, it's pretty difficult to kind of work at what you want to do over the next few game weeks, because it's very easy to miss out on a lot of points in the next few game weeks as well. So it doesn't matter when you play a wild card, you play it later, you're missing out on points. So anyway, enough rambling. Adam, what is your current thing with this in mind of of wild card? I know you've mentioned game week 10.
Yeah, I'll elaborate. So I do think it's an opportunity to do it in game week 18, 19, because you could effectively sell Haaland and have an extra player and replace him. For me, though, the opportunity cost is where we're game week 7 now. Is it 12, 13 game weeks? That's a long time.
Massive, yeah.
And I just feel that the ground that you could lose in both team value and points, you're gonna have to go some, and whoever you brought in for Haaland is gonna have to have there's a lot of pressure on those weeks. And also, I don't think it's a great double game week for Brentford. And from a City perspective, it's around Christmas. There's gonna be loads of rotation anyway. So I think if everyone will have Haaland, it's not too difficult to bring in 1 or 2 after City players. So it puts me off a wild card. You know me, Fergie. I like wild carding early. I mean, I've done a few panic wild cards. I think I've learned from that, actually, and I've been very patient this season. And I see, as things stand, the earliest our wildcard is game week 9. But if I make the transfers that I'm thinking at the moment, my game week 9 team, it would basically have Son and Maddison at home to Fulham, Bruno and Rashford away to Sheffield United, which is pretty strong. And I think Alvarez and Haaland are at home to Brighton. So
you could knock it into game week 10 then, can't you? Really?
That's what I'm thinking, because I think Liverpool v Everton after the international break, and this is key. A lot of people think the international break is a good time to wildcard. I don't, because I think price rises in the international break are a myth. People lose interest during the international break in reality. The other thing is, after the international break, it throws up loads of injuries, conundrums, and also because players have been away with their national teams, it can impact how they play.
SGP, in case in point, a couple of weeks ago, missed.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it just throws that uncertainty. So that's why I don't like game week 9, and I don't actually want to do it in game week 8, because I also think wildcarding, then going into an international break where you could get loads of injuries, could be counterproductive. So I think for me, I'm quite confident I'll go game week 10, because if I go game week 10, Villa play Luton that week, I can triple up on Villa. And I'll be at that Luton game as well. I mean, if we're not having not having Diaby and Watkins, or that game would be hard to watch. But I also think I can properly go into Liverpool. Saka, I believe, has Sheffield United in game week 10 off the top of my head. So is that right? I've got that. I haven't made that up, have I? Yeah, so he's got Sheffield United. So there's some actually really nice captaincy shots, and there's actually possibly a week to go against Haaland, I think. See, they're away at Old Trafford. So I think Villa have got Luton at home. Arsenal have got Sheffield United. Spurs are away at Palace, so I might drop one of the Spurs players then, and they have a mixed run. So I just think the fixtures sort of turn quite nicely. Brighton have got Fulham at home, and it's not after the international break again, so we might have an idea of a couple of players who are playing, etc. So Liverpool have got Forest at home. So for me, it's because I've looked at what my game week 9 team will be in theory, it'll be okay, and I could conjure up an okay team, but I see there's a lot of upside in that. So there's nothing that I've seen so far. The only thing that would probably tempt me not to do it is if I definitely don't want to, if I just don't want to invest in Liverpool, that'll be it. But Liverpool have been brilliant.
Won every game, haven't they?
They have been. I mean, for me, they've been the second best team in the league. Behind City. So, but I think even when I was checking on Understat, top for XG, and he's got that balance right in midfield, and I just think they look really, really good. They destroyed Villa. They won comfortably. They beat West Ham comfortably. Anfield's a fortress anyway. So it'll be interesting how that Spurs game goes. So for me, I wouldn't say it's now done for game week 10, but I'll be very surprised if I don't use it then.
Yeah, I'm looking. I think I was eyeing that up anyway, and the Saka out transfer. You know, they're home to Sheffield United on that week on game week 10. You're not going to be wanting to use your free transfer that week to bring Saka back. It's just
he's the best captain option in my opinion that week.
Interesting. And as you say, Villa home to Luton. There will not be many people on Watkins and Diaby that week, will they? Instead, no. You can really make really solid ground. Yeah, interesting. Rich, has the EFL stuff? I think your initial reaction in the chat was Game Week 19 wildcard, but have you changed your mind?
Yeah,
a bit,
I mean, I think I don't mind a late wildcard, but I've done it before. I've gone late, sort of Game Week 19, from a position of strength. So when I've been up the rankings, and if you're sitting high up the rankings and you've still got that wild card in pocket going into Christmas, so you can just set yourself up for January and February and because your teams, you've got the right players because you're doing well. I'm not in that position now. I'm down. I'm not too worried about 1.5 million, but it's not where I want to be, obviously. So I think I'm learning from Adam's point about the fixture turn and all those attractive fixtures. And if you do want 10 weeks in, you want to get a bit of a bump, because I always say try and get in the top 100k by Christmas, and that will help you. There's no point having a wild card in your pocket if you're down at 4 million at Christmas, is there? Really?
Absolutely not.
It's gone then. So it's interesting. I'm not going to take a longer look at it, but certainly it's 9 or 10 on the earliest horizon for me. I'm not planning to do it in 8.
I think as well, Adam, you mentioned earlier, Turner and Pickford as well. It's the fixtures are fantastic up until that point, and then they're just gone. You get in on Areola and wherever else as well.
Pickford Turner overdrive joke again, which got no reaction.
Yeah, that's right. Sorry about that, mate. I like that. Very good.
Yeah, I think when you have to explain a joke,
I know exactly. No, it's never very funny, is it?
Yeah, but I think the Christmas wild card, because that's effectively what it would be in around that point. I don't like it because I feel there's a huge opportunity missed, unless your team is in incredible position and you've been making perfect transfers each week, which, well done, fair play in that case. But there's a lot of rotation. So let's say your players have got really good fixtures. It could be that they end up missing one of the good fixtures. So that's why I don't like it. And I think they're splitting the game weeks as well. You've got the FA Cup.
Yeah.
The colder months lead to more hamstring injuries, etc. So I just think it's a huge and illness as well. I think it's a wasted opportunity, and I think so.
I'm just looking at the dates, and you're absolutely right. So bear in mind, Man City will be away during this time. So they're away during Game Week 18, which is Saturday the 23rd of December. So the day before Christmas Eve, they're away. They're going to miss that game, right? So Game Week 19, which when they're back for, is on Boxing Day, just 3 days later. Right, so that's Game Week 19, which is when do we want to be wild cards on Boxing
Last
Day?
chance to use
and
it.
I don't even mean from like a immediately sending Christmas Day pouring gravy over your wildcard team. It's not nice, right? So then you've got that on 19. Game Week 20 is Saturday the 30th of December, which means the double will be around the 3rd or 4th of January, because the FA Cup is the following weekend. So all these teams have got 5 or 6 games in a period of like 15 or 16 days. And do you really want to be setting your team up for the long haul right in the middle of that absolute bloody chaos, both in terms of Premier League football and everything else, both in terms of your own personal thing as well? It's a bit mental. So I think with that in mind as well, the fact that City in the World Club Cup will play a couple of games out there as well before coming back to play fresh on Boxing Day, it's not for me, I don't think. So I think
the other thing,
10, I think.
The other thing with I think it's Game Week 21, and I could be wrong here, but there's a split game week. So again, that's not ideal, because will be I don't know if they'll put them in as separate game. I don't think they do that. I think they keep it as one big game week. So yeah, it's I think planning when you're going to use it is from a position of strength can be a really good strategy point by looking at the fixtures, because it can help you decide your transfers between now and when you use it. So like we've been talking about, Morris, if your team is in a position to use it next week, I think there's a bigger push to looking at the double game week.
We're going to be having a Game Week 10 wildcard special by the sound of it, gents. That'll be an interesting one in a few weeks. Just looking quickly before we look at our teams at the Hub AI Game Week 7 wildcard team, I looked at this, I thought, are you mad? Are you crazy? But then when you look at it a little bit more, it has got Pickford and Turner for the next 3. Obviously, moving on after the next 3. Triple Luton defence, 4 million, 4 million, 4 million, with Trippier and Shah on the bench. Immediately everyone says, "What, are you crazy?" But then you look at the rest of the team. And then you go Salah, Son, Bruno Fernandes, Maddison, and Diaby in midfield. Haaland, Visser, and Archer up front. And I was looking at it, I was thinking, why would you have that defence? But obviously from next week, you would play Trippier, Shah, and a 4 million defender for a few weeks, which is all right. So it's not as crazy as I once thought. And for those of you who continually love to rag the AI out week on week, it's very probably doing better than you, because it is 550k wildcard in hand and absolutely flying. So
I do actually like that wild card. I think the only thing that I would change is I'd probably go off Trippier and go slightly, maybe Botman.
And then upgrade one later.
And upgrade. And then I'd maybe split I'd have one Luton and one Burnley defender.
Or if we think Archer's going to play, there's even a possibility of like a 4-5-1 there, but having Archer as your second forward, just in case no one plays.
I think there's for me, I think there's some really good. I think 3-5-2 is the perfect formation based on how the points are going. There's loads of great midfielders, but I think there's some fun strikers like someone like Darwin Núñez, Watkins in a few weeks. I think there's some good options up front, and I think that actually the second striker, and obviously Alvarez, I think he'll still do well. So I think the second striker could be where you can be different to other people, and plus it's more fun wanting goals than wanting clean sheets.
Absolutely. Yep.
Interesting.
Makes sense.
I'm surprised it's Pickford.
Yeah, Pickford Turner. I am as well.
It looks sort of horizon of 5 weeks, so it's just kind of and it's probably thinking you can go from either of those to Areola in 3 weeks, for example. So,
well, I mean, I think Areola Leno looks to be the best goalkeeper pick long term.
That'll be the game week 10 wild card.
That's it. I wonder about that looks more like a free hit team to me than a wild card team, if that makes sense, because it's for 1 week, and anyway, just my thoughts.
Let's move on and have a look at the captain for this week. On the votes, Haaland 68% of the vote. He's also top of predictions. So Haaland predictions 8.7 points. Morris 8.1. Kaminsky, Trafford, Burke all just behind on 7 and 6. Salah 6.4. Son 6.3. And then the rest. Morris got 18% of the vote as well. Away to Everton, home to Burnley. Rich, what are your thoughts on captaincy? Amazing. Are you going away from Haaland this week at all? Tempted or?
No, not.
If you were getting Morris, would you be tempted?
No, not as a captain. I'd get him as in order to get 11 out if I had to, but I wouldn't captain him.
Adam?
No, and I'm with Haaland. I think he's the best option this week. I mean, Wolves defensively, I think Luton were creating a lot of chances against them. So I know they were down to 10 men, so that was, of course, was a factor. But I think the way that, Liverpool scored 3 there the other week. I think if City turn up, Rodri will be a big miss, but you'd expect a City team have been creating a lot of. The amount they created away at West Ham, which we all thought was a tougher fixture. I think it takes a brave man to go against Haaland at the moment, because he's been very, very unfortunate in a couple of the weeks. If you were going to go for a differential captain, though, who would you go for?
I think this week, if I was bringing him in, I think someone like James Ward-Prowse or Bowen could be a really interesting one this week. Home Sheffield United, they're dreadful at set pieces, as the Trippier showed. So I think if there was an opportunity, I'd maybe go Trippier against Burnley, or Salah or Son playing each other. Like I say, I think we see goals in that one, to be honest.
I've got Bruno as my vice captain at the moment. So,
yeah, I like that. I like Bruno and Rashford for this week.
Good shout. Some interesting shouts in the chat. Some shouts for JWP. Martin says Porro is a gem for Spurs defence going forward potentially, and Branthwaite. A couple of shouting out on Branthwaite as well. Pete says he is a unit. Someone says he is a genuine goal threat and a unit. So interesting ones there. Let's have a look at our teams for the week. Oh, no, we're not. Fergie's a punt. Do you know, I'm disappointed because we've mentioned him loads of times this week, and I thought he was going to be a bit of a sneaky one. Just so far on my form, Udogie finished his stint in my punt team this week from game week 3 to 6, 12-5-2-0. I think we can say he was a hit. 19 points in 4 weeks, very good. Eze 8-2-2. He was unlucky. I think he was unlucky last week not to return. Still think he looks good for the next week or two. Hoyland, we picked him. Well, I picked him in game week 5, I think it was. 2-2 so far. I think he's been unfortunate. Scored the offside goal. Looks all right. I fancy him to still do well in these next 2 games. He played 90, I think, on the weekend. So happy to have him. Edouard was unlucky, wasn't he? I don't know if you saw the save off the keeper where he kind of bounced his bum, then bounced over the bar, wherever it was. He should have scored. Those who went with him last week were unlucky. We've touched on him a bit this week so far. He's higher owned than I thought he was. I'm really surprised. 11.8% owned. 5 appearances, 2 goals, 3 assists, as I mentioned earlier. 2 big chances, 3 big chances created, 8 key passes. Home to Sheffield United this week. James Ward-Prowse is my punt for the next 2 games. I just can't believe how high he is. 11.8%. I was really surprised when I saw that. But he has looked superb. He's playing in this new position just behind the striker as well. I think he's going to have a fabulous 2 weeks.
Is he on pens?
Have they had a pen? They've had a penalty, actually, have they? I don't know who is on pens, thinking about it. But yeah,
I don't know. Cresswell.
I think for his wildcard, and when you're looking at a different sort of wildcards,
I think penalties. Penalties. So Benrahma took them last season, but if he's not in the team, it'll be Paqueta. I think he's taken some as well, so I think it'll be between those 2.
Okay,
and then
he's a good penalty taker, isn't he? Very good penalty taker.
James Ward-Prowse double returns on Friday. I'm gonna.
I think that's a really good shout as both as an enabler and off one of these injured players. If you've got an injured player and he's ruled out, I think it's a great shout.
And the fixtures are fairly decent as well. They're home to Newcastle next week, which isn't easy, but they're away to Villa, home to Everton, away to Brentford. I think next few weeks he could do really, really well.
Who do you prefer, James Ward-Prowse or Bowen, for both of you?
I think it's Ward-Prowse for me.
Think personally. It's just the value, isn't it? Bowen's still around 8 mil, isn't he?
7.
Oh, 7. Okay, there's not that much in it then. Still prefer Ward-Prowse, I think, just as all the set pieces.
The Football Content Awards are back for 2023, and the Green Arrow has been nominated for the best podcast. We are a finalist in the fantasy football category. If you enjoy our content, we would really, really appreciate it if you could take just a couple of minutes to vote for us. The link is in the description below. We would really appreciate it if you could vote for us for best podcast for a finalist. And while you're there, if you enjoy our team reveals, if you enjoy using our website, enjoy using our AI and everything else, could you also nominate Fantasy Football Hub for the best editorial? Ollie and George, our editor and deputy editor, do an absolutely fantastic job. And thank you so much in advance if you do it. It would mean the world to us. So we really appreciate that. All 3 of us at the moment look like we might actually go into the awards as well, because I'm very aware, guys, I don't think we've actually, all 3 of us, met in person, have we? As in all 3 of us at the same time? I don't think we have we?
I think so.
So yeah, that would be nice if we could manage to do that. So please do, if you wouldn't mind. It would really mean a lot to us. Adam, got your team on screen. Flag. I took this. I took this yesterday, so it's not showing all your flags. Actually, it's still got Botman.
That's good. We'll go
Saka,
with your version.
You've only got Maddison flagged, but I know Botman and Saka are both flagged, aren't they? So,
and Chilwell
now. Yeah, actually, what is your plan for the week?
Firstly, I'm not going to think about it until tomorrow afternoon because I need the team news.
Yeah, it's massive. It's massive this week, isn't it?
Now, what I'm expecting is, I think Eddie Howe might give a positive indication, or I think he'll give some form of indication. I think Ange Postecoglou will as well. Arteta will give nothing. He'll say, I don't expect anything from Arteta, which makes it really, really difficult. And I can't really wait for last minute because I'm football coaching on Saturday morning, so I'm not sure. So if I talk you through the options I've got, so my issues are Chilwell, but I could make a transfer in that position. But at the moment, I've got Botman, Estupinan, and Kabore, and so if I bring in anybody else, it gives me a bit of a benching headache. So who do I know? I'd probably it probably would be a Stupinan, but as I've said, he's been the most attacking defender so far this season. If I replace Chilwell, it'll be for either Shah, because I think Newcastle defensively have been exceptional, or for Dalot, who I really like, and I think he could be quite. I think United would have turned the corner. I think they'll get 2 or 3 clean sheets in the next 3 or 4 game weeks. So I like that. He's great on bonus as well. So it'll be one of those. It won't be Trippier purely because I'm thinking about future moves, and I can just about do moves with Trippier, but with price rises and all of that, I just don't want the stress or hassle.
Yeah.
Particularly as I'm trying to get to game week 9. So that would be the defensive move I made. Now, other options, I could do Saka to Son.
Yeah.
Got the money to do that. That's possible. I could do Saka to a West Ham attacker. Or I could do Archer to Morris. So I've got loads of things. Alternatively, if I get a full bill of health, I might even full bill of health excluding Chilwell, I might just save him a transfer. Because then I don't have to make the decision on which player to bench, and I can take 2 into next week.
What are you going to do?
Yeah, exactly.
What are you going to do if Arteta says, he's just very vague
Touch
on
and go.
because he's not going to say he's fit. He's going to play, is he? He's going to say he's a doubt.
Yeah, I think it's a tough one, isn't it? Because I think if he's ruled out, he's a sell. An easy sell, got no issues. Agreed. And I think I'll probably go for Son because I know I want Son the following week. With Bowen, James Ward-Prowse and the others, they've got Villa and Newcastle the following week, so they're a bit tougher. So I'm not going to necessarily regret that move, particularly when Son's got Luton, good potentially a captaincy option as well. So I think I would sell in that instance. I'm hoping, I don't think we'll get anything from Arteta, but I do think we'll get some indication as to whether he's trained or not from other sources. That's what I'm expecting. So if he's in training, I'll probably keep him.
I'm not sure I will see, because they got Champions League midweek and Man City on the weekend. So I just don't think he gets... Even if he does play, I don't think he gets 90. I don't think. I'm not sure.
He might be. He might actually just put him on the bench. You might put him on the bench.
Yeah. So I'm just not.
That's the thing. It's a high risk of a cameo for Saka.
Just think the upside of Son this week, regardless of whether Saka is fit. If Son isn't fit, if Saka's not fit, even if he plays, I just can't see him playing 90, and he's unfit. He's clearly not 100% fit, which will affect his performances. Just get on Son early, because you want to do it next week anyway against Luton.
Yeah,
I'd sell Rashford for him next week. That's the thing, as I would probably keep Saka because I think it's a better fantasy asset. Yeah, I think I'm going to get rid of one of the United guys because I just think it's too much United still. Even though I agree they turned the corner, but I don't think it's. I don't like owning 2 of them anymore.
I'm happy keeping United until the Sheffield United game. I think the Palace, Brentford and Sheffield United fixtures are good, and I think we'll see more from Rashford and Bruno.
Your recommended transfer this week, Adam, is to bank. It does say alternative is Maddison to Son. It's obviously looking at Maddison flagged, but it just fancies Son. It fancied it last week. It recommended it to all 3 of us last week. So yeah, interesting there. Rich, do you want to talk us through your team?
Like what Adam said about United. So Anana in goal, got a clean sheet last week, and now some very nice fixtures to come. So hopefully more cleans for Anana, and happy to hang on to him for a while. The double up, like the Newcastle double up, really fingers crossed that Botman isn't injured, but hopefully Cher will get something. And Gabriel, I think he's played 90 minutes last night. Bit worrying, but Gabriel hopefully will start against Bournemouth. So quite happy with the defence for this week. Yeah, nice. It's really the flags in midfield that are worrying me, Maddison and Saka. I'm hearing Maddison's okay. Quite happy with Sterling. Rumour is he's going to play up front with Jackson suspended.
Is that right?
Yeah, so he might play number 9. So happy to hope that's true. And he hasn't done anything, and he was somebody that I was thinking just carry on selling the Chelsea because I've sold 2 out of 3. Did 2 last week and just get it done, get out of there and go to Ward-Prowse off him. So that's an option. But I think if he's going to play number 9 against Fulham, again, it's a bit like Rashford and Bruno. There's nothing wrong with the fixture. There's nothing wrong with the player. They're fit. Put the fires out on the injured players.
Just a team that can't score a goal.
Yeah, exactly. We can't score any goals anyway. So it's, I mean, he won't be in for long. He certainly won't survive the wild card. So, Saka to Son is something that I'll do if he's ruled out, similar to Adam. And then the Man City pair up front, I think Alvarez will start. He has got brought off at 72 minutes last night, I think. So he's had 57 and 72. I don't think he'll be too knackered to play at the weekend. But my big problem is the, Baldock and Mubama. I've got no backup. I've just got Estupiñán as backup, and those flag players are worrying me. So I might have to do Baldock to Kabore just as a cheap covering transfer for a double game weeker that doesn't use all the money. And the team news will be dependent on that. If I could roll, I probably would still like to roll and take 2 into game week 8 and then use them up and then wear them out afterwards.
That is how you like to roll, Rich, as well, isn't it? You love
Yeah.
it.
But yeah.
It's recommending you get Son in this week as well, by the way.
For Saka or for Maddison?
It says Maddison, but obviously it's looking at. I took this yesterday when Saka wasn't flagged, so it may say Saka.
Yeah.
My team: Pickford in goals, Trippier, Gvardiol. I'm never sure he's going to play. He's a very frustrating hold. He's played the last 2 now. I don't know if he's going to play. Bayer, I've got. The Burnley defender just had him from game week 1, so I'm going to play him this week. At the moment, ahead of Estupiñán and Udogie. I'm not sure about Estupiñán. I'm not sure whether to play him or not. I need to have a think about that. Bruno, Rashford, Maddison, Saka, and Mbeumo. Mbeumo's away to Forest. I like his next 3. Away to Forest, away to Man United, and home to Burnley. So I like his next 3. So I'll probably leave him in for that. Haaland and Alvarez. And at the moment, I actually like injuries sometimes. Obviously, in the context of fantasy football, when your hand is forced, I was planning on potentially doing Rashford to Son, but I love Rashford's next 3. I think watching Palace the last twice they've played, I think they've been incredibly fortunate to only concede what they have conceded. I think they haven't looked very good these last 2 games. So I fancy Bruno and Rashford to do okay on the weekend. Maddison and Mbeumo, and I'm hoping Saka's a doubt because it'll tip me over the edge to do Saka to Son, which I really want to do. Haaland and Alvarez. And judging, just looking at the conversation we had earlier around wildcarding, I think now, it was in my mind anyway, but I think I'm pretty set on game week 10. So I think that my game week 8 and 9 transfers are going to be very short term, sort of, look at the next 2 fixtures sort of ones. Just looking at kind of Everton's next 2 this week. Home to Luton, home to Bournemouth. There was a couple of shouts in the chat for Calvert-Lewin and a couple of those sorts of players as well. Everton defender may not be the worst shout. But that's my plan. My recommended transfer this week is to bank. Alternative was Rashford to Son, but obviously now that we've got the flagged players, I'm assuming that it would recommend the flagged players. Paul Jones says, "Do it anyway, Fergie." On the Son one. I think I'm going to do it. I fancy him against Liverpool. I do think that's going to be a real ding dong game. That I think both of them are really. They're playing with high intensity. They're both playing well. They're both attacking well. They're both not defending well. So I can see that being a really good game. Interesting. Anything to add, gents, at all before we?
No, not at all.
Good stuff. In that case, that is it from us for this week. Thank you so much to everyone who joined in the chat. Those who will watch it back and those listening on the podcast version, your support is very, very much appreciated. Adam, thank you so much for joining us. Where can people get hold of you?
On Twitter or X at Hopta Stats.
And Rich, thank you so much. Where can people get hold of you?
At Rich Clarke FPL on Twitter as well.
And my handle on Twitter is at FFH_Fergie. Make sure you drop us all a follow. And also at FFH_Green Arrow and FFH_HQ. This podcast and video will be on the Fantasy Football Hub YouTube channel, where the podcast version is available on all major podcast platforms. If you like what you watched, please press the like button. Remember to subscribe to the channel in the bottom right corner of the screen if you haven't already. And if you enjoyed your listen, please rate the podcast, leave a comment. Just a reminder, this podcast and Green Arrow are finalists in the Football Content Awards, so we would really, really appreciate it. I'm going to put the link. I just noticed it's not in the description. I'm going to put it in now. So if you could pop in a vote, only takes about literally 10 seconds. It would be much, much appreciated. These little things really do add up. We'll be back next week, previewing Game Week 8. We think I'm going away next Thursday, so we're likely to probably do it on the Wednesday, just so everyone knows in advance. In the meantime, the very, very best of luck for double Game Week 7, and may all your arrows be green. Good night, all.